Before Wade Wilson ever glimpsed the borders of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, before his red suit became symbol of violent improvisation and self-aware storytelling, before the Time Variance Authority labeled him as an anomaly too chaotic to ignore, he existed in a universe that was never meant to survive, a timeline shaped by its own internal history, separate from the order that the sacred timeline once pretended to impose across infinite realities. Wade Wilson's origin traces back not to Earth 616, but to a reality with its own scars, its own rules, and its own heroes, a world recognized by the TVA as a splintered branch, one that grew wild long before the MCU even considered reaching into it. In that universe, Wade was not a chosen hero, nor a soldier destined for greatness, nor a cosmic anomaly destined to collide with sacred destiny. He was simply a man trying to live his life shaped by pain, humor, and stubborn resilience. He was born an ordinary human, a mercenary shaped by trauma and poor judgment, someone who lived through the small tragedies of mundane existence. Someone who learned early that the world rarely rewarded those who tried too hard to do the right thing. He carried a childhood of instability, forged in environments where violence solved problems faster than honesty, where the closest thing to therapy was sarcasm, where a punchline became survival mechanism. Wade learned to weaponize his humor long before he ever held a katana. Humor was armor, sarcasm was ventilation, and irreverence became spiritual strategy. In his original timeline, Wade tried to carve meaning out of chaos, finding work as mercenary in a world filled with mutants, heroes, and villains who often overshadowed the quiet suffering of ordinary people. Yet Wade remained resolutely human in every way that mattered. He was a man who feared vulnerability, a man who wanted connection, but did not know how to hold it without self destructing. And against all odds, he found someone who understood him, Vanessa. The romance that grew between Wade and Vanessa was strangely pure, inside universe where purity rarely survived. Their love was not heroic anthem but fragile, grounded truth between two broken people who made each other whole. It was not cosmic destiny, not scripted fate, just statistical miracle. For the first time, Wade believed universe might not actually hate him. Then came the diagnosis. Cancer spread through his body with cruel speed, dismantling illusion of control he had finally gained over his life. Fear overwhelmed him. Not fear of death itself, but fear of leaving Vanessa alone, fear of becoming burdened, fear of losing last thing that made life meaningful. When shadowy representatives of an experimental program offered him chance to live, Wade accepted not out of selfishness, but desperation hidden beneath bitter bravado. The procedure he underwent, weapon plus experiment rooted in mutation triggering torture, was not heroic transformation, but grotesque ordeal. He was subjected to controlled suffocation, chemical assaults, cellular manipulation designed to activate latent mutations. The pain reshaped him molecularly and psychologically. His body regenerated, healing faster than it could die. But the process scarred his skin and tortured his mind, leaving him disfigured physically and emotionally. Wade Wilson died inside that laboratory, and Deadpool crawled out of its ashes. With newfound regenerative powers and mental state fractured yet sharpened by trauma, Wade adopted persona that mixed humor, violence, and theatrical self-awareness. He hunted down Ajax, the man responsible for his transformation, with relentless determination, pursuing revenge not for glory but to reclaim life stolen from him. Deadpool's world was brutal yet strangely comedic, narrated through fourth wall breaks that exposed truth. Wade was aware he was story performance anomaly in universe trying to function normally. He existed at strange intersection of narrative and reality, aware of tropes guiding his path. His humor drew from pain, his chaos masked vulnerability, and yet, beneath absurdity, he remained a man defined not by violence but love. Vanessa's acceptance of him, unmasked, wounded, transformed, grounded him again. For a brief moment, Wade Wilson's life stabilized. He had partner, purpose, and identity. But stability and Wade Wilson were sworn enemies. The universe he lived in was one where time travel was not impossible, only irresponsible. After the death of Vanessa at the hands of criminals seeking revenge on him, Wade spiraled again. Faced with grief too heavy to joke about, he sought redemption by sacrificing himself to save child mutant named Russell. His torture-born healing factor made death difficult, but his emotional collapse was real. And when Cable's time travel device came into play, Deadpool saw opportunity. Cheat fate, rewrite tragedy, fix life that kept breaking around him. He used time travel with casual defiance, jumping through moments of his own past, saving Vanessa, correcting mistakes, even mocking alternate versions of himself. These acts, humorous on surface, were catastrophic violations of temporal order. Every alteration sent ripples across his universe. Wade was not just breaking rules, he was destroying structural integrity of his timeline. But his universe was not under TVA surveillance at the time. It existed in multiverse, not yet colliding with sacred timeline. So his actions went unpunished, temporarily. But every joke he made at expense of linear causality, every butterfly effect triggered by impulsive timeline tampering, every paradox he created by saving or erasing moments that were meant to remain fixed, contributed to weakening walls of his reality. His timeline was already in precarious state post-Messiah mutant era, altered futures, branching narratives. Deadpool's intervention accelerated entropy, and Wade, oblivious as always, continued narrating his own life as if audience were in on cosmic joke with him. But jokes had consequence. Universe began unraveling. His reality, one the TVA later labeled as dying branch, started flickering like old film reel burning through projector. People acted strangely. Events felt repeated, as if timeline were skipping frames. Backgrounds changed subtly. The metaphysical structure of his world buckled under weight of accumulated paradoxes. Even Deadpool noticed. Walls he once talked through seemed thinner. Jokes echoed too loudly. Reality felt scripted out of order. But Wade mistook warnings for stylistic flair. This was Wade Wilson before MCU. Man of chaos, shaped by trauma, driven by love, guaranteeing the destruction of his own universe through desperate, well-meaning attempts to save people he cared about. His story existed outside the MCU's order, yet was destined to collide with it. When TVA eventually detected him, an anomaly with unprecedented regenerative ability, temporal violations, self-awareness, and universe collapsing under narrative overload, they saw threat and opportunity. Wade's timeline was dying anyway. His arrival into MCU was matter of when, not if. And so, before he even stepped into sacred timeline, before he met Wolverine's variant, before he saw golden halls and collapsing branches, before he understood that universe had rules even he couldn't joke away, Wade Wilson's legacy had already positioned him as man out of time, warrior forged in world not meant to survive, anti-hero propelled toward universe that would, for the first time, give him place where chaos was needed. After Wade Wilson emerged from the experimental nightmare that forged Deadpool in his collapsing universe, after he reclaimed the love he once feared losing forever, the fragile peace he built with Vanessa became focal point of his entire existence, anchor of sanity inside timeline that seemed increasingly aware of its own mortality. In that reality, later catalogued by the TVA as a deteriorating branch, Vanessa was not mere love interest. She was gravitational center of Wade's identity, the only force strong enough to tether him back to humanity despite violence, absurdity, and self-aware chaos that defined his life. Their relationship grew in aftermath of his transformation, carried by strange tenderness born from honesty they shared. Because even when Wade hid behind jokes, irreverence, and colorful violence, Vanessa saw man beneath mask. For a brief span of time, they carved stability out of entropy. Wade found purpose beyond revenge, found warmth in small domestic rituals, found meaning in fleeting quiet moments where humor softened into vulnerability. But peace in Deadpool's universe was always temporary, always balancing on knife edge of cosmic instability. His healing factor protected him from death, but not from tragedy. His humor insulated him from pain, but not from fear. And when enemies from his mercenary past sought to hurt him indirectly, targeting the one person he could not survive losing, universe tore open at seams of his emotional world. Vanessa's death, rapid, brutal, executed by criminals Wade had crossed long before, reset his existence back into chaos. The moment she died in his arms, Wade felt something break deeper than bone, deeper than skin, deeper than psyche. It was the point where Deadpool became paradox. Grief hit with overwhelming force, shattering illusion that universe could be kind to a man like him. Saddled with guilt and rage, Wade sought escape in violence but found no meaning in revenge. Emotionally adrift, he joined X-Force mission, not for glory or heroism but for redemption, desperate to protect young mutant Russell, kid whose fate echoed Wade's own childhood trauma. Wade's death on that mission, even temporary, symbolized his willingness to sacrifice himself to protect future he didn't believe he deserved. But resurrection, common event for a man whose healing factor mocked death, did not soothe him. Instead, it reminded him how fragile others truly were. And so he crossed line he should never have crossed. When Cable's time travel device came into Wade's possession, he saw a chance to fix everything. Not to save world, not to save universe, to save her. Wade used device recklessly, shattering rules of causality without hesitation. He jumped back to crucial moment and prevented Vanessa's murder, eliminating tragedy in stroke of defiance. In doing so, he declared war not on villains but on time itself. That act, while noble in intention, fractured his universe irreparably. Vanessa's revival did not come with cosmic blessing. It came with cosmic warning. Universe is not architecture built to withstand impulsive emotional rewriting. In Sacred Timeline, even Avengers with quantum suits and Pym particles understood dangers of altering fixed points. But Deadpool, blissfully ignorant or deliberately reckless, manipulated timeline with casual disrespect. Every time he used Cable's device, correcting mistakes, saving older versions of himself, erasing cinematic catastrophes, he inflicted microfractures across fabric of his reality. Patterns shifted subtly, events replayed incorrectly, backgrounds changed without explanation. People behaved inconsistently, as if script were struggling to reconcile divergent branches. Wade laughed through it, believing he was simply rewriting story for better comedic timing. He didn't understand that he wasn't rewriting story. He was erasing its foundation. Vanessa noticed first. Not alarms in sky, not TVA agents, not cosmic gates. She noticed emotional lag, moments where Wade stared into nothing, humor faltering as if universe around him flickered. He dismissed it as trauma, but tremors in timeline grew louder. Several minor supporting characters began experiencing déjà vu within déjà vu, remembering versions of events that no longer existed. Russell spoke of futures that contradicted each other. Domino sensed probabilities collapsing on themselves. Cable felt temporal displacement in his cybernetic arm. Even Colossus believed world felt unfinished, as if waiting for a next frame to load. But Deadpool treated all of it as genre parody, not symptom of multiversal decay. Love, the force that drove him to hack time, was now force breaking reality itself. Saving Vanessa was a temporal violation, significant enough to attract TVA attention, especially after collapse of He Who Remains Order at end of Loki's first season. His sacred timeline no longer enforced singular narrative, but TVA still existed, attempting to contain chaos. Deadpool's actions were chaos incarnate, but TVA didn't intervene immediately. They monitored him. They observed how his universe began crumbling as a result of his unsanctioned shifts. They waited until moment collapse was irreversible, until point where his timeline became one of many doomed worlds, falling into entropy during multiversal war aftermath. Meanwhile, Wade finally sensed something deeply wrong. His universe did not feel alive anymore. He looked around and noticed subtle inconsistencies, physics bending oddly, timeline repeating conversations he'd already had, reality skipping like corrupted disk. He attempted humor to mask fear, narrating to invisible audience with defensive bravado. But behind mask he felt dread, familiar to anyone who knows they caused irreversible harm. Vanessa tried anchoring him, reassuring him, loving him, reminding him that imperfect moments still mattered. But even she sensed reality thinning. It was not dramatic collapse, not catastrophic explosion, more like slow suffocation of world eroding at edges. Then came moment everything changed. Time did not simply fracture, it stalled. Scenes froze for split seconds longer than they should. Supporting characters halted mid motion before blinking back into movement. Color palettes shifted slightly, as if cinematographer kept changing lens. Deadpool, with his meta-narrative awareness, understood something universe itself couldn't articulate. Story was ending. Timeline was dying. He caused it. There was no sudden TVA arrival, no dramatic intervention, only quiet inevitability. One night, as Wade sat beside Vanessa, telling her he'd fix everything no matter what it cost, reality around them dimmed like candle burning last drop of wax. Sky lost depth, air felt weightless. Vanessa touched Wade's face with expression mixing love and resignation. She told him something universe itself wanted to say. This world can't hold you anymore. He understood, and he hated it. Universe was pushing him out. Timeline he lived in for decades was ending, not because of cosmic destiny, but because of him. And yet, in that final quiet moment, Vanessa did not blame him. She forgave him. And forgiveness hurt more than any wound he'd ever suffered. Wade held her, knowing their time was measured in seconds. He promised she would live, even if not here. He promised they would meet again, even if under different laws of reality. Then world collapsed, not violently, not thunderously, not with cosmic spectacle, but like stage curtain lowering, fade to black. Wade found himself in darkness, suspended in space between timelines, remnants of his collapsing universe dissolving around him into static particles that once represented history, memory, identity. And from that void of dissolution, a new force reached into absence, the TVA. Wade, drifting in cosmic limbo, was collected not as prisoner, not as villain, but as anomaly whose universe no longer existed. He called out for Vanessa but received silence, and as TVA agents dragged him into facility beyond time, past golden halls flickering with power, vacuum left by he who remains fall, Wade realized he had not just lost Vanessa, he had lost entire universe she lived in. His grief echoed across blank corridors representing collapse of infinite branches. TVA informed him, coldly, clinically, that his timeline failed pruning protocols and had expired. Everything he ever knew was gone. Deadpool's love saved Vanessa, but destroyed his world. His grief broke his timeline. His refusal to accept loss triggered multiversal consequence. And now, alone in hands of organization dedicated to preserving order that his very existence disrupted, Wade Wilson stood on threshold not of death but rebirth, because universe he was about to enter, the MCU's sacred timeline, was not built to withstand someone like him, but it needed him, even if it didn't know it yet. Deadpool's path into MCU began with love. But love, mishandled, shattered his universe and forced him into new one. What came next, his encounter with Wolverine, the Void, the resurrection of identity, would redefine him. But everything began with this truth. Wade Wilson broke time for love, and because of that, time broke back. In the strange, shifting quiet that followed Deadpool's reckless rewrites to his past, those impulsive jumps through time meant to rescue Vanessa, to undo pain, to rewrite narrative the way a desperate storyteller edits his own script. His universe began unraveling in a way Wade Wilson could not ignore, even if he tried to bury the signs beneath humor, violence, and ironic commentary aimed at invisible audience he believed was always watching. The timeline he came from, known later by the TVA as a fading branch of the multiverse, existed long before Sacred Timeline collapsed, but it had always been precarious, always surviving on genre flexibility, narrative self-awareness, and chaotic physics that allowed mutants, mercenaries, time travelers, and psychic entities to coexist without structured cosmic policing. It was world with its own internal logic, one where Cable could travel back in time using cybernetic device built from apocalyptic scrap, where Juggernaut could tear buildings in half, where Fire Fist could incinerate military compounds, where Domino's luck functioned like cosmic cheat code. But even that flexible universe had limits, and Wade exceeded them. His timeline wasn't built to withstand infinite edits or casual temporal vandalism. Every time Wade traveled back to alter moment he didn't like, every time he erased version of himself, every time he mocked continuity as if it were a flimsy prop, the foundations of his universe strained harder. For a while, the world compensated, bending around him with internal comedic elasticity unique to his reality. But after Vanessa's resurrection, fixed point broken, destiny reversed, the cracks stopped hiding. Reality in Wade's world began to feel like collapsing set, scenes repeated with subtle inconsistencies, arriving a second too early, a gesture replayed, a line of dialogue delivered with different cadence as if timeline were buffering. Deadpool joked about deja vu, but supporting characters weren't laughing. Colossus repeated entire sentences without remembering he had. Dopinder recalled conversations that never happened. Domino saw outcomes diverging from probabilities she trusted implicitly. Cable, whose cybernetic enhancements synced with temporal frequencies, felt glitch running through his mechanical arm, sign that timeline was destabilizing at quantum level. Even Vanessa sensed something wrong, though she couldn't articulate it. She sometimes paused mid-conversation, glancing around as if room had shifted half an inch to left. And all Deadpool could do was deflect with humor, because acknowledging truth meant admitting he had broken the world he was trying to save. The more Wade attempted to live normal life again, sharing breakfast with Vanessa, plotting future, joking about kids, more universe retaliated subtly, nudging him with reminders that his story was out of sync. People walked into rooms before events that justified their presence. Objects appeared or disappeared without continuity. Clothing changed between shots. Walls shifted color tone between scenes. Wade, with his meta-narrative instincts, understood the symbolism immediately. His universe was losing budget. But behind jokes about cheap writers or lazy directors, real panic grew, because for a man who believed fate had always hated him, this was confirmation. Universe itself was rejecting him. The more Wade tried to ignore collapse, the more aggressive inconsistencies became. A store he visited regularly vanished for half a day before reappearing. A taxi Dopinder drove morphed into entirely different make mid conversation. Time gaps appeared, seconds missing, hours skipped. Wade once blinked and found himself standing in different part of apartment with no memory of walking there. His healing factor twitched unnaturally, as if his biology couldn't register stable quantum environment. Vanessa asked him if he was okay, but Wade couldn't answer honestly without sounding insane, and then came real warning signs. Sky fluctuated between times of day without natural transition. A TV broadcast looped same frame for hours. Shadows didn't always align with objects casting them. Wade confronted Cable about situation, demanding explanation only time traveler could provide. Cable, grim and matter of fact, told him truth. Wade feared, "You broke timelines that were holding this universe together. It's not stable anymore. Something bigger is happening across multiverse. You just sped it up." The comment forced Wade into existential silence rare for him. For first time since becoming Deadpool, he couldn't joke away consequences. His world's deterioration was directly tied to his actions. But collapse wasn't solely Wade's fault. There were larger tectonic forces at play. The fall of He Who Remains and shattering of sacred timeline created multiversal instability, reverberations reaching even realities previously insulated from TVA oversight, realities like Wade's. His world, loosely held together by narrative flexibility, comedy logic, and mutant chaos, was not strong enough to withstand shockwave of cosmic order collapsing. For decades, TVA pruned timelines efficiently. When that system failed, infinite realities like Wade's surged into existence simultaneously. Too many branches grew, too many universes competed for same metaphysical space. Some timelines were stable enough to survive. Others, like Wade's, were structurally unstable even before Shockwave. Deadpool didn't understand cosmic mechanics, but he recognized metaphor. His timeline was cheap IKEA shelf overloaded with bowling balls. Collapse was inevitable. As days passed, universe's symptoms escalated. People vanished and reappeared mid-sentence. Weather changed without transition. Buildings jittered. Rooms flickered between past and present versions. At one point, Deadpool witnessed billboard glitch like corrupted digital file, and the final sign arrived one night when Wade attempted another time jump to fix things again, only to discover Cable's device malfunctioned completely. Instead of sending him to past, it transported him into corridor of blank nothingness between frames of his own timeline, a place devoid of sound, color, or gravity. Wade panicked, believing he'd walked into behind the scenes void, when Device yanked him back violently, depositing him at home, bruised and shaken. He finally accepted truth. Time itself was closing around him like book shutting. He told Vanessa he would fix it somehow, but words felt hollow. She held his face, reassuring him with warmth he feared losing again. She told him world didn't need to be perfect as long as they were together. Wade wanted desperately to believe her, but cosmic collapse doesn't pause for love story. And then, one quiet morning, Vanessa froze mid-movement. Not emotionally, literally. Her motion halted, her breath suspended, her blink stuck halfway. Reality paused around Wade, everything suspended in unnatural stillness. Wade screamed her name, shook her, begged world to move. Nothing responded. And then, like dried paint cracking off canvas, edges of room dissolved into glowing dust. Not like Thanos' snap, but like film reel burning. Vanessa dissolved with room, motionless. Wade's heart tore open, not for death this time, but because he understood she wasn't dying. She was being erased. Universe unraveled completely, folding inward in silent implosion. Wade's apartment dissolved, streets vanished, people fragmented into static particles. Only Deadpool's healing factor anchored him temporarily in collapsing timeline, giving him seconds others lacked. He found himself suspended in void, screaming into darkness where his world used to be, rage mixing with grief, comedy finally stripped away. That was moment TVA intervened. They didn't rescue his universe. They couldn't. It was already gone. They rescued Anomaly at its center, Wade Wilson. He wasn't teleported. He was extracted like Survivor clinging to debris after cosmic shipwreck. TVA agents grabbed him with cold efficiency, ignoring pleas for Vanessa, for his world, for answers. They dragged him through time portals into facility beyond reality. Inside TVA, Wade raged, cursed, begged, joked, threatened, sobbed, all at same time. Loki had warned TVA wasn't heartless, just bound to purpose. But after fall of He Who Remains, TVA was fractured, staff unsure of new mission, timelines breaking everywhere. Wade's case was anomaly among anomalies. He was not variant, not villain, not hero. He was survivor of dead timeline, rare and dangerous. They explained his universe was doomed branch no longer sustainable after multiverse destabilization. They explained his tampering accelerated collapse. They explained nothing he did could have saved it. Wade's heart broke deeper than Weapon X ever cut him. And yet, inside TVA's halls, Deadpool felt strange, calm beneath grief. Universe that rejected him had not killed him. It delivered him to one with rules, structure, and fragile hope. But Wade didn't yet realize significance. That would come later. For now, he grieved. This was Deadpool's life after Deadpool 2. Man living in world unraveling because he tried too hard to save what he loved. And that collapse was not end of his story. It was beginning of journey that would thrust him into MCU proper, alongside Varian Wolverine through Void, into battles shaping fate of 616. When the Time Variance Authority finally placed its invisible hand upon Deadpool's shoulder, tugging him from the collapsing darkness of his dying universe, the moment was not heralded by dramatic alarms or cosmic thunder, only the sterile hum of temporal machinery pulling Anomaly out of void it no longer belonged to, delivering Wade Wilson into one of the most rigidly structured forces ever created to police existence itself. The TVA, fractured and confused in the aftermath of He Who Remains Death, did not greet Wade with hostility at first. Rather, his arrival was met with combination of bureaucratic exhaustion and existential dread, the kind of reaction only organization too overwhelmed by infinite branching timelines could express. The agents who escorted Wade through shimmering portal did not speak to him except in clipped commands. Their expressions caught between irritation and disbelief, as if Universe had played cruel joke by assigning this unpredictable, self-aware wildcard to their department at a moment when everything was falling apart. Wade, for once in his life, did not greet situation with humor. His mind lingered on the fading memory of Vanessa dissolving in front of him, entire reality she represented, collapsing like stage set abandoned by actors. The TVA's fluorescent corridors felt alien, not because they were outside time, but because they lacked soul, devoid of narrative warmth, designed for function rather than feeling, a brutal opposite of the messy, emotional world Wade had just lost. And yet, as Wade looked around, trying to comprehend both grief and bewilderment, he realized TVA was not the omnipotent force it once was. Screens flickered, timelines in monitoring chambers glitched and overlapped, Analysts argued in hushed tones. Entire rows of pruning sticks lay broken on the floor. The grand machinery built to maintain sacred timeline was sputtering like dying engine. Even elevator music felt corrupted, skipping bars. TVA was not Fortress, it was hospital recovering from multiversal heart attack. And Wade, chaotic outsider, was thrown into middle of its triage room. The agent assigned to process him, a weary bureaucrat named Mr. Paradox, carried expression of someone who had seen too many timelines crumble in too few days. He examined Wade's file on digital pad, flickering with unstable light, and sighed with weight of a man who needed 2 hours of sleep and lifetime of therapy. You shouldn't exist, Paradox muttered, not with menace, but with genuine confusion. Well, Wade replied, voice hoarse with grief, join the club. Paradox attempted professionalism, but even he struggled to wrap mind around anomaly who broke fourth wall, survived total universal collapse, wielded healing factor that defied temporal correction, and still found time to flirt with cosmic disaster. Wade was not standard deviant. He wasn't even variant. He was sole survivor of a dead branched universe, something TVA rarely encountered. When branches collapse, they usually take inhabitants with them. Deadpool was exception, walking glitch, quantum refugee, man whose regenerative powers preserved him long enough to be caught by TVA's temporal nets. You are complicated, Paradox whispered. Wade shrugged emptily. Story of my life. As agents attempted to categorize him, Wade wandered through TVA's inner workings with mixture of curiosity and hollowness. Everywhere he turned, signs of chaos, field monitors melting into golden static, time doors malfunctioning, agents arguing about whether reality still followed rules. Since Loki dismantled Loom controlling sacred timeline, TVA no longer operated under single fixed order. They adapted to infinite branching universes, and Wade was first explicit case of survivor from timeline collapsing for reasons not related to pruned destiny, but natural entropy accelerated by multiversal fractures. TVA saw him not as threat but as symptom of larger disease. If his universe died, others would too. Wade realized this tragedy was not unique. It was preview of coming storm. Wade tried to request information about Vanessa, desperate, voice trembling, but TVA had nothing to offer except cruel truth delivered without malice. His universe was gone, not pruned, not archived, gone. There was nothing to return to, no timeline to anchor, no past to revisit. Every person he loved and hated existed now only as static residue in TVA's memory banks. Wade collapsed onto bench, mask hanging in hand, face empty, emotionally raw in way he rarely allowed. For a long moment he did not joke. TVA agents observed him in respectful silence, unfamiliar with sight of Deadpool stripped of humor. He whispered to himself, I always ruin everything. But grief, as always, shifted into fuel. When TVA attempted to write him off as emotional liability to be quarantined, he argued with force of man who refused to die quietly. If my world is gone, he said through clenched teeth, give me one worth fighting for. TVA did not understand Deadpool's metaphors, but they recognized potential use, an anomaly with healing factor strong enough to withstand raw temporal energy, someone capable of surviving missions in places where normal agents collapse. Wade was transferred to classification chamber, where footage from his file played across holographic panels. Scenes from his reality, edited by TVA for internal review, appeared like museum fragments. Wade's torture, his transformation, his romance with Vanessa, his time jumps, the moment reality decayed, the collapse of timeline, extraction by TVA. Wade watched, expression flickering between numbness and bitterness. Seeing his life displayed like curated tragedy sickened him. You guys need better cinematography, he muttered weakly. Paradox replied, we need better everything. Wade's chaotic meta-narrative nature confused TVA scanners. Devices glitched when reading him, as if he was looking back into them. TVA attempted to map his personal timeline, but branching patterns refused to stabilize. It was first time TVA realized Wade possessed property extremely rare, self-awareness strong enough to interfere with narrative detection. It wasn't superpower, they confirmed it wasn't magical or cosmic. It was ontological anomaly. His consciousness existed slightly angled relative to timeline, giving him ability to perceive story mechanics. TVA didn't consider this ability dangerous. They marked it as inconvenient, but combined with healing factor and history of temporal violations, Wade became problem too unpredictable to prune and too useful to discard. But before resolving what to do with him, TVA required evaluation by senior authority, and because TVA leadership was fragmented after Loki's intervention, the authority was not judge but Minnesota Man, Cassandra Nova's future puppet master, though Wade did not know that yet. TVA's interim command wanted to stabilize infinite branches using desperate measures. Wade was to be tool in upcoming conflict, whether he liked it or not. As Wade sat alone inside temporal chamber, its clocks ticking out of sync, lights dimming and flickering, he began to feel presence he had sensed only in rare traumatic moments, weight of destiny not earned but forced upon him because universe refused to let him disappear quietly. He did not choose to enter MCU. He was dragged through collapse of one reality into machinery that controlled all realities. For first time, Wade Wilson understood scale of his insignificance and paradoxically, scale of his importance. TVA saw him as wrong man to hold multiversal burden. But he was right problem, anomaly whose very existence revealed fault lines inside cosmic structure. He waited, restless, confused, furious at universe for taking Vanessa twice, a time for mocking him, at himself for breaking everything he touched. Then screen illuminated with mission brief, locate variant Wolverine, one of last surviving fragments of another collapsing reality. TVA claimed Wolverine was asset needed to restore balance to cluster of dying timelines. Wade didn't care about cosmic politics, he cared about finding purpose again. But when he saw image of Wolverine, a man whose world died like his, whose life ended in timeline that no longer existed, Wade felt something unusual. Kinship. Not emotional romance, not friendship. Shared tragedy, shared displacement. And then TVA told him something that finally ignited spark in his broken heart. Varian Wolverine might know how to reach nexus points between universes. He might know how to return Deadpool to something resembling home, or at least a future where Vanessa might live again under different rules. TVA didn't promise resurrection, but they dangled thread of hope, and Wade, desperate man in dying cosmos, grabbed it, not because he trusted TVA, but because he needed reason to keep moving. Thus, Deadpool's journey through TVA corridors became path not toward imprisonment, but recruitment, whether he understood it or not. He was anomaly, survivor, unwilling soldier in fading multiverse war. TVA sought weapon. Wade sought meaning. Their goals collided in paradox only timeline could resolve. And so Deadpool, broken, grieving, sarcastic even in despair, took step towards destiny shaped not by his choices, but by collapse of everything he once knew. TVA marked him as liability with potential. Universe marked him as man without home. Story marked him as catalyst. This is how Wade Wilson, last man of Dead Universe, was drafted into cosmic machinery that would throw him directly toward Wolverine, the Void, and eventually into glowing heart of the MCU itself. There is a specific kind of silence that fills a universe in its final days, a fragile quiet that hangs in the air like the echo of a song whose last note refuses to fade completely. And it was inside that silence, unspoken but unmistakably present, that Deadpool lived the last moments of his collapsing world. Even before the final rupture, Wade sensed the death of his universe not through cosmic visions or TVA warnings or mystical omens, but through small moments where reality hesitated, as if uncertain whether it still wanted to exist. The pause before a streetlight changed longer than it should have been, the echo of footsteps arriving before the person stepped into view, a conversation finishing without proper beginning, time staggering forward like drunk actors stumbling off cue. After Vanessa's resurrection, after Wade tampered with events that should never have been altered, after fixed point dissolved into narrative improvisation, his timeline began bleeding internally, subtle ripples growing into violent waves that exposed truth. Wade refused to acknowledge the world he loved, fought for, and joked his way through was no longer stable enough to continue. But collapse wasn't just consequence of Wade's defiance. It was product of larger cosmic shift sweeping across multiverse after fall of He Who Remains. Without sacred timeline keeping branches suppressed, without loom weaving futures into order, infinite realities grew uncontrolled like roots of giant tree splitting ground beneath it. Some timelines adapted and flourished, some branched and stabilized, some resisted chaos entirely. Others, like Deadpool's, were born unstable, surviving for years only because TVA once pruned enough universes to prevent their collapse. When pruning stopped, pressure surged. His world, comedic and chaotic by design, broke under strain. It was not meant to survive forever. It existed for short narrative bursts, never architected to endure cosmic balancing act. And when he changed destiny, saving Vanessa, breaking death meant to fix his emotional arc, he severed last structural pillar preventing collapse. What happened next was not explosion, not apocalypse, not war. It was unraveling. The first major sign came in form of temporal fractures, thin shimmering cracks appearing in sky like faint cracks on poorly cleaned window. They lasted only seconds, vanishing when noticed, but they grew louder, brighter, more persistent each day. Clouds skipped formations, birds flapped wings out of sync, reflections in mirrors lagged half second behind motion. Wade observed anomalies, choking nervously, but even he recognized fear creeping beneath humor. Fourth wall awareness, usually comfortable distancing device, now felt like open wound. It allowed him to feel narrative instability beneath world, and instability was accelerating. Days repeated with slight changes. Wade would live through morning routine, go to sleep, then wake up, living same morning but with objects misplaced, details altered, dialogue mismatched. He asked Vanessa if she noticed. She admitted she did, but she insisted they could handle it together. Wade clung to her reassurance, though deep inside he feared universe could no longer accommodate their love. It was not personal, it was structural. Then came second sign, physics malfunctioning. Drinks wouldn't spill properly, liquids falling sideways. Fire flickered in reverse. Wade once threw grenades into lake. An explosion sound occurred before splash. Color palette of world shifted, scenes too bright, then too muted. Wade realized he was living inside deteriorating medium, like film reel decaying or video game with corrupted textures. His reality, once absurd but consistent, was losing rules. He confided in Domino, hoping her probability altering instincts could explain. She said probabilities felt flattened, like universe stopped calculating outcomes. Cable confirmed through cybernetic readings that temporal coherence was breaking. Your world's coding is unraveling, he told Wade. This isn't an anomaly. This is end of life cycle. And Wade, shaken, whispered, first honest fear he'd expressed since Vanessa's restoration. I don't want to lose her again. But Universe was indifferent. Third sign arrived violently. A building collapsed without losing structural integrity, simply pixelated into dust. Cars froze mid-motion, then melted into smears of color. People became translucent, then snapped back into solidity, questioning what happened. Conversations ended before they began. Daylight flickered between sunset and noon. Wade's awareness of being observed, sensation he often joked about, intensified. But this time it wasn't audience, it was surveillance from outside timeline. TVA was watching, waiting, preparing for extraction protocol used only for universes on brink of collapse. Wade's timeline wasn't simply deteriorating, it was scheduled for natural expiration, like branch too weak to sustain itself. He tried to warn others, but every attempt was swallowed by worsening instability. He told Vanessa they had to leave. She refused, insisting their reality was home. And Wade, torn between love and truth, sat with her in silence as their world trembled. The death of a universe is not cinematic. It does not roar, it sighs. Wade experienced moments like slipping into sleep you cannot wake from. It was quiet morning. He and Vanessa sat together on couch, trying to act normal as world flickered around them. Suddenly everything froze, not time, but story itself. Birds stopped flapping, air stopped moving, a faint shimmering spread across walls. Vanessa's voice cut off mid-sentence. Wade turned to see her face still warm but expression frozen. He shook her, begging her to react, but her body felt like statue. Then walls dissolved into static, pieces of reality flaking away like peeling paint. Vanessa disintegrated, not violently but gently, her outline breaking into golden particles drifting upward. Wade screamed, reaching out, trying to gather pieces in hands that could not hold light. Entire universe around him dissolved into cosmic dust. Streets melted, buildings vanished, noise died entirely. Wade alone remained, healing factor anchoring consciousness long enough to witness end of everything he knew. Then came final moment, a soundless implosion, like breath being exhaled. Wade floated in void, total absence of matter, energy, time, and inside void, golden sparks drifted like embers carried from fire long extinguished. Deadpool reached out instinctively, hoping one spark was Vanessa, but sparks were memories of timeline, fragments of existence recorded in temporal space. He drifted alone, screaming until voice cracked, but void swallowed every sound. Then, finally, a slit of light opened above him, TVA portal, and from it, agents emerged like silhouettes against radiance. Wade expected rescue. Instead, extraction. They bound him with restraints forged to withstand cosmic anomalies. Wade fought, cried, cursed, pleaded. Take me back, he shouted. She's still in there somewhere. TVA didn't respond. They retrieved anomaly, logged timeline death, closed portal, and left void dark again. Wade collapsed on TVA floor, trembling, mourning universe with no grave. In TVA's custody, Wade learned final brutal truth. His timeline was not pruned artificially. It had died naturally, its narrative exhausted, its structure too damaged by multiversal shockwaves and Deadpool's alterations. Vanessa was gone. Everyone was gone. His universe ceased to exist. TVA offered no consolation. They delivered clinical summary. Your branch reached irreversible decay, agent stated. Wade could barely breathe. For a long time he sat in silence, mask crumpled in trembling hands, staring at cracks forming in his sense of self. But even grief cannot consume Deadpool forever. Eventually, rage regained place. rage at universe, rage at TVA, rage at himself, and from that rage emerged clarity. If universe took Vanessa, he would force universe to answer for it. If timeline died, he would find one where she lived. If TVA saw him as anomaly, he would become their worst mistake. But beneath fury burned truth he dared not speak aloud. He wanted purpose again, not revenge, not chaos. He wanted something to hold on to in cosmos that erased everything familiar. Thus, collapse of Wade's universe was not conclusion, it was catalyst. Catalyst that knocked him loose from dying branch and propelled him toward multiverse, toward TVA schemes, toward Wolverine's broken path, toward MCU's heart. Universe died because Wade broke destiny. Wade survived because story wasn't done with him. And from ashes of Dead World, Deadpool began crossing threshold into new existence, not by choice, but because fate, narrative, and chaos demanded he step into center of unfolding multiversal war. If Deadpool's arrival at the TVA marked the moment the multiverse took notice of him, the emergence of the Wolverine variant marked the moment the multiverse decided to test him. Just as Wade Wilson had watched his own universe hollow out, collapse, and dissolve into golden dust around him, there existed another man, another survivor of a doomed branch, whose world had died long before the TVA plucked him from its final heartbeat. This man was not just any wandering remnant of a fading reality, not just another refugee pulled from cosmic wreckage. He was Logan, known across infinite worlds as Wolverine, the violent monk of shattered timelines, the reluctant savior of broken futures, and in his original reality, the last mutant alive long after the X-Men had died. His timeline, the one where his claws grew sluggish and his healing factor weakened, had already concluded with him breathing his last beside a girl who carried his legacy. But the Logan the TVA captured was not that man. This Wolverine came from a universe where fate struck differently, where the X-Men still existed until they didn't. His world had collapsed not by natural entropy, nor by Deadpool-like tampering, nor by Kang's interventions, but by something more heartbreaking, failure. In his universe, Wolverine failed to save those he loved. His X-Men died, his world rotted, and he lived on long enough to witness it crumble. This emotional wound, older than any blade that ever cut him, lingered inside him, like scar that refused to heal, even for a man whose body regenerated endlessly. Logan watched his home dissolve just as Wade had watched his own, only with one critical difference. Wolverine believed he deserved it. When the TVA extracted him from his dying universe, just as they had done with Deadpool, Logan did not resist, did not panic, did not scream into void. He simply stared into collapse, eyes cold and exhausted, carrying expression of someone who had buried far too many versions of hope to fight for another. TVA agents, baffled by his lack of reaction, dragged him into their corridors with minimal resistance. In typical TVA fashion, they processed him as variant of moderate threat level, violent but emotionally neutralized by cosmic scale despair. Yet the TVA, in its state of bureaucratic decay and ideological confusion after He Who Remains fall, had no idea what kind of man it had brought into its crumbling machinery. They saw Wolverine as tool, not as someone wrestling fate. They believed he was perfect candidate for their desperate mission to stabilize cluster of dying universes. In truth, they were wrong about purpose, but right about potential, because Wolverine and Deadpool were two halves of same cosmic anomaly, survivors of collapse, chosen not for destiny but compatibility with chaos. Wade first saw Wolverine not in dramatic fight or cinematic confrontation, but in remote file chamber where TVA stored records of dying universes. Deadpool, still shaken by loss of him, Vanessa wandered through library like corridors filled with temporal projectors displaying scenes from countless extinct timelines. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had escaped his handler for emotional reasons, searching for information about his vanished world. He approached projector labeled with quantum identifier matching his universe and watched it replay final moments. Vanessa dissolving, buildings collapsing, void swallowing everything. And then, on adjacent projector, he saw a man with claws kneeling among rubble of world that looked familiar yet distant. This man's universe collapsed as quietly as Wade's, but this man didn't scream, didn't fight, didn't resist. He accepted destruction like old friend. Wade stared at Logan on screen and muttered, "Damn, he's even more depressed than I am." It was accidental foreshadowing of cosmic partnership. When TVA finally paired Wade with Logan, assigning them mission neither asked nor agreed to, Deadpool's first reaction was fanboyish excitement mixed with grief-fueled desperation. Logan's first reaction was annoyance bordering on hostility, but TVA forced contact anyway. Their paths collided in holding chamber where Wolverine sat silently, posture rigid, aura carrying weight of entire dead world. Wade approached him with mix of reverence and irreverence, trying to break tension through humor. Wolverine didn't react except with low growl. Wade tried again, offering handshake, comment about Logan's height, remark about Hugh Jackman. Logan stared with feral indifference. "Not the time," he muttered. Wade persisted until Logan pinned him to wall with claws extended. "I'm not your friend," he growled. "I'm not your partner, and I'm not here to help you." But TVA didn't care. They shoved Pear through time door into cold remains of timeline already in decomposition. Wade, shaken but excited, turned to Logan. "Great first date," he whispered. Logan ignored him entirely. Wolverine's universe, his original branch, had ended not because of comedic chaos like Wade's, but because of tragedy. TVA records later revealed events. Variant Logan had served in team of X-Men who fell in battle that should have been winnable. His failure triggered series of catastrophes he could not prevent. Mutant school destroyed, students scattered or killed, Professor X gone, Magneto vanished. Logan blamed himself for everything. His healing factor, strong enough to mend body, was useless to mend soul. From that point on, he lived not as hero but as ghost, wandering ruins of world that had no more use for him. When universe finally began collapsing from same multiversal instability Wade's world faced, Logan did not fight it. TVA's extraction came minutes before collapse. Logan did not look back. This emotional dimension defined Wolverine's role when forced onto mission with Wade. TVA never intended partnership based on friendship. They intended partnership based on necessity. Wade's reality warping presence and Logan's combat expertise, combined with their shared status as survivors, made them uniquely capable of surviving environments hostile to other agents. And so, Wolverine, variant defined by grief, and Deadpool, variant defined by defiance, were released into mission meant to fix timeline cluster. Instead, they used opportunity to escape TVA custody. It was Wade who made first move. As TVA prepared to assign them to new realm, Wade whispered into Logan's ear, "Help me, and I'll help you disappear." Logan initially refused until Wade pointed out truth. TVA did not care whether their mission succeeded. They cared whether anomalies stayed contained. Logan wanted freedom. Wade wanted future. Their interests finally aligned. Their escape initiated brawl inside temporal staging platform. Wade fought with twin katanas, slicing through agents, dodging temporal tasers with his unpredictable reflexes. Logan fought brutally, instinctively, claws tearing through ranks. Together they overwhelmed TVA Squadron and dove through malfunctioning time door, landing inside the void cosmic landfill where pruned universes and abandoned variants collapsed. Void was end of everything, yet beginning of many things. It was place where Loki had fought Alioth, where Sylvie and Loki had confronted variants of He Who Remains, where monstrous remnants of pruned timelines floated like corpses in fog. For Wade, Void felt metaphor for entire life, chaotic, messy, full of monsters. For Logan, it felt like home, silent, lonely, full of ghosts. Here, Wade learned truth about Wolverine's past, not from Logan himself, but from remnants scattered across Void. Abandoned X-Jet rusted against hill, broken Cerebro helmets cracked among ruins, claw marks carved into stones. Wade pieced together fragments through intuition and environmental storytelling. Logan, forced to confront ruins of what resembled his world, finally broke silence. He told Wade he had failed his team, failed his students, failed his universe. His voice cracked with guilt so profound even Deadpool didn't joke to diffuse tension. Wade placed hand on Logan's shoulder, not with silly humor but with quiet sincerity. I get it, he said. We're both the last idiots standing. Logan didn't smile, but he didn't push Wade's hand away either. As Duo journeyed deeper into Void, they encountered variant outcasts, pruned realities, echoes of universes erased by TVA. Among these remnants, Wade realized something crucial. Logan wasn't weapon TVA intended. He was key. Key not to restore timelines, but to survive beyond rules. Wolverine's resilience combined with Deadpool's chaotic narrative immunity formed paradox capable of resisting cosmic forces most beings couldn't withstand. It was why TVA targeted Logan variant in first place. They needed him to stabilize cluster of decaying timelines, not realizing emotional weight would destabilize him. Instead, Logan and Wade confronted Cassandra Nova's forces within Void, mutants twisted by Nova's psychic manipulations after her rise during TVA's collapse. Nova sought to use survivors of pruned timelines as resources to build her own multiversal empire. She targeted Wolverine specifically, knowing his guilt made him vulnerable to psychic invasion. Wade fought to protect Logan, joking even while bleeding, using humor as psychological shield. Logan fought to protect Wade, claws shredding monsters emerging from narrative remnants. Their synergy, absurd but effective, mirrored classic body duo archetype but carried cosmic significance. They weren't just fighting mutants, they were fighting collapse of identity. In final confrontation with Nova inside Omega Center of Void, Logan broke free from her influence, empowered by moment of unexpected clarity. Wade's stupidity, humor, and resilience reminded him that suffering did not cancel worth, that failure did not eliminate possibility, that even man with broken past could fight for future with someone equally broken. Wolverine unleashed ferocity rarely seen, defeating Nova's psychic control. Deadpool, bloodied but grinning through mask, told Logan, "You don't get to quit, not yet." For first time, Logan nodded. Their partnership solidified, their survival guaranteed, and together they took final step toward impossible door. A time gate leading not back to TVA nor to Void's depths but to Earth Sin 116, the MCU itself. Logan did not ask questions. Wade did not hesitate. They leapt because there was nothing left behind them but ghosts of dead worlds. And this is how Wolverine, variant forged by tragedy, hardened by grief, pulled from dying universe, became companion and counterweight to Deadpool, setting stage for their entrance into MCU, where their destinies would intertwine not through destiny but through shared survival. When Deadpool and Wolverine tore themselves free from the collapsing order of the TVA and plunged through the unstable time door, they didn't land inside another structured reality or on a familiar Earth with familiar rules. Instead, they fell into the void, an endless graveyard at the edge of time, a cosmic wasteland forged from the corpses of universes the TVA had once pruned, a place where dead timelines drifted like continent-sized fossils, and unwanted variants wandered through fog thick as memory. The void was not a realm of chaos for chaos' sake, it was a design, a containment field for narratives deemed unusable, unacceptable, or simply too dangerous to leave wandering across the multiverse. Everything that had ever been erased, trimmed, culled, or abandoned ended up here, smashed together in a patchwork desert of broken possibilities. Cities from variant Earths jutted out of red sand like broken teeth. The husks of starships from realities where humans reached into galaxies they were never meant to touch lay half buried. The skeletal remains of giant beings, perhaps celestials, perhaps something older, cast shadows over landscape that had no sun. Deadpool stumbled out of time door with flamboyant lack of grace, landing face first in dust that tasted like burned film stock and sadness. Wolverine followed with controlled thud, claws half drawn, instincts sharpened not by rage but by necessity. The void welcomed them with silence that felt older than the sacred timeline itself. For most beings, void was death sentence. Alioth, the monstrous storm of temporal hunger that once patrolled this realm, had devoured anything wandering too confidently. But since Loki and Sylvie killed He Who Remains, Alioth's patrol had weakened, its presence diffused across space, leaving regions of void quiet enough for survivors to gather, form societies, create camps, or descend into madness. Deadpool stared across horizon in awe, equal parts terrified and impressed. This place looks like Disney bought a landfill and gave it a depressing backstory, he whispered. Wolverine ignored him, crouching low, scanning terrain with senses attuned to danger. Logan understood truths Wade did not. Everything in Void wanted to survive, and anything that wanted to survive was dangerous. The landscape itself felt hostile, shifting unpredictably, cracking open beneath feet, occasionally rearranging like broken puzzle trying to remember original shape. Remnants of universes collided here, fracturing physics, creating strange pockets where time moved differently. Far off, lightning arced across sky with no clouds to generate it. Wade gulped. "We're gonna die here, aren't we?" Logan grunted. "You first." The two wandered through remains of city pulled from unidentified timeline, a warped Manhattan where skyscrapers leaned at impossible angles, as if gravity lost interest halfway through. Windows reflected nothing. Cars sat abandoned, doors open, like scene paused. Mid-escape. Wade tried to lighten mood with jokes, but silence felt heavy enough to crush humor. Logan's presence, stoic but suffocating, only made Wade sharper. As they walked deeper, Deadpool noticed disturbing detail. Certain objects flickered, appearing and disappearing as if caught between states of existence. He waved hand through mailbox that dissolved into static, then reappeared with slight variation. "We're in glitch dimension," he muttered, half excited, half nauseated. Logan corrected him. "We're in garbage dimension." But even Logan's humor, rare and dry, could not mask truth. Void was graveyard of stories. Then they encountered first signs of life, or what passed for life. A group of variant survivors emerged from behind rusted bus stop, each one shaped by timeline that birthed them. One was grizzled Thor variant missing arm. One was cartoonish Steve Rogers drawn in outdated animation style. One was elderly woman wearing broken Iron Man armor. They approached Wade and Logan with mixture of fear and curiosity. Deadpool, excited, waved dramatically. Logan pulled him back, claws half drawn. Survivor leader explained reality. Void was home for those pruned or displaced, but survival depended on avoiding things worse than Elioth, things left behind from timelines where experiments, mutants, or cosmic beings turned feral in absence of narrative anchor. Wade listened, fascinated, but Logan seemed irritated. This wasn't his fight. He wanted exit. Wade wanted meaning, purpose, maybe chance to rewrite fate. Survivors warned them to stay away from region ruled by the collector of broken stories, but Wolverine ignored warning entirely, stating he didn't take orders from strangers. Wade apologized on Logan's behalf, bowing politely, then ran after Grumpy Mutant. As they continued through Void, environment worsened. They passed crater where alternate Avengers Tower lay, crumpled like discarded toy. They passed forest made of broken TV screens, each flickering scenes from extinct timelines. Wade touched one and saw a version of himself singing Broadway show tune. He recoiled. "We don't talk about that timeline," he whispered. Logan rolled eyes. Wade noticed Logan seemed increasingly heavy, dragging emotional weight tied to ruins resembling fragments of his former world. At one point they stumbled upon destroyed mansion, X-shaped structure, half buried in desert. Logan froze. It was variant version of Xavier's school. Wade placed hand on his shoulder. "We don't have to go in," he murmured. Logan stepped forward anyway. Inside, dusty plaques bore names of students gone. Logan, overcome, withdrew claws and punched wall until stone crumbled. Wade watched quietly, understanding Wolverine's grief without need for jokes. As they emerged from ruins, Void shifted tone. Fog thickened. Air grew colder. Static electricity prickled skin. Logan snarled, sensing something immense approaching. Wade froze. A shape moved in. Distance, vast, swirling, amorphous shadow with tendrils of lightning. Alioth, but weakened, fragmented, slower, since death of he who remains disrupted its control. Still, its presence terrified anything caught in path. Wade and Logan sprinted, diving behind wreckage of giant Pimtech drone. Alioth passed overhead, tendrils scraping debris with sound like thunder made of whispers. Wade trembled. Logan panted. They waited until Beast drifted away. Wade whispered, "So, Void has final boss." Logan glared. "You talk too much." After escaping Alioth, they pressed deeper into region referred to by survivors as the Scrap Crown, a gigantic mountain of discarded objects rising in spirals like twisted throne. At summit lay Gateway, an unpruned time door left open accidentally by TVA during earlier collapse. Wade recognized it immediately. Temporal energy signature burned golden blue like TVA devices. Logan sensed opportunity, but before they could climb, they encountered group of prune TVA agents who survived collapse and established rogue faction. This faction, twisted by months in void, followed leader named Paradox Prime, variant of TVA analyst who believed survivors should rise against TVA and seize control of Multiverse, rewriting pruning protocols to create new order. He recognized Wolverine and Deadpool as anomalies. Wade attempted diplomacy. "Listen, we're emotionally fragile. Be nice." But group attacked. Logan fought with ferocity. Wade dove, rolled, stabbed. Battle raged among mountain of broken artifacts. Wade accidentally impaled variant Loki plushie. Logan decapitated robots shaped like Mickey Mouse. They overwhelmed attackers after brutal struggle. Then, as dust settled, Wade noticed temple-like structure near summit built from broken fragments of universes, door frames from Asgardian palaces, steel beams from Wakandan labs, signage from New York variants. At its center stood shimmering portal, time door flickering in and out. Logan approached. Wade hesitated, concerned portal might send them to worse place. Logan reminded him, everything is worse than this. And so they climbed ruinous spiral, fighting fragmented entities, half-formed variants twisted by collapse, remnants of realities that had lost coherent identity. At top, they confronted Cassandra Nova's scouts, agents searching for anomalies to bring to Nova's growing psychic empire forming in lowest depths of void. Wade fought one scout who shattered like brittle glass when killed. Logan tore another apart with claws glowing faintly, hint of residual cosmic energy absorbed during extraction from his universe. They reached Time Door, but before stepping through, something unexpected happened. Wade felt presence, warm, familiar, radiating from tiny spark floating beside portal. Vanessa? No, but fragment of timeline's memory, part of cosmic debris that resembled her for a fraction of a second. Wade reached toward Spark. It dissolved instantly. Logan placed a hand on Wade's shoulder. She's gone, he said softly. Wade inhaled shakily. Then I'm going to a universe where she doesn't have to be. Logan didn't question him. The two stepped through portals, shimmering, unstable, loaded with potential energy from collapsed timelines, and were flung into cosmic tunnel that wasn't TVA time stream, not void corridor, but transitional space between dead branched universes and sacred timeline. In that space, they saw fragments of worlds swirling like snow, variant Thors battling serpents, Star-Lords dancing on alien moons, Doctor Strange variants conjuring illusions, Loki smiling with mischief, Iron Men flying through skies of worlds long gone. It wasn't past or future, just memory space, corridor of everything ever pruned. Wade whispered, "We're walking through graveyard of stories." Logan replied, "We're walking toward new one." And with that, tunnels spat them out violently into forest on world, unlike void, alive, stable, structured. Earth, but not their Earth. Earth 616, the MCU, and road between universes closed behind them permanently, leaving void to its silence and duo to destiny waiting ahead. When Deadpool and Wolverine emerged from the cosmic tunnel that had carried them out of the void, the multiverse had not finished reshaping their fates. In fact, what awaited them next was not sanctuary, not stability, and not a simple transition into a new universe, but collision with the fractured remnant of an organization once responsible for maintaining order across infinite timelines. The TVA they had escaped was only one version of itself, one battered corridor within massive machine collapsing under weight of infinite branches, but the TVA's influence extended far beyond its golden halls, bleeding into forgotten timelines, abandoned pruning zones, and unstable junctions where rules of existence wore thin. It was in one of these junction zones, a liminal pocket reality between void and sacred timeline, that Deadpool and Wolverine encountered the lingering echo of TVA's greatest failure. Cassandra Nova, the psychic parasite who had slipped through TVA's cracks during their collapse and rebuilt herself from the ashes of pruned timelines. Deadpool and Logan did not know her name at first. They felt her before they saw her, the strange tremor in air, as if thoughts themselves bent around invisible pressure, the way birds fell silent all at once, the way shadows stretched unnaturally, not because of light, but because of presence. Cassandra Nova was not variant, she was psychic residue shaped into consciousness by collision of dead universes, surviving because she fed on what TVA discarded. Her existence was impossible under sacred timeline, yet inevitable once he who remains died. She inhabited the corpse of a timeline pruned so violently that its psychic imprint had congealed into sentient echo, echo that learned to manipulate survivors, shape matter, and pierce consciousness more deeply than any telepath Wade had ever joked about. And as Deadpool and Wolverine stepped across threshold into her domain, the multiverse held its breath. The landscape around them felt like fever dream, stitched together by hands that did not fully understand physics. Half-formed buildings jutted from soil like skeletal ruins. Colors bled at edges of objects. Ground rippled occasionally as if beating with heartbeat of dead universe. Wade, ever the commentator, opened mouth to make joke, but even he sensed heaviness in air that forbade humor. Wolverine's claws extended instinctively, metallic rasp echoing across lifeless expanse. He muttered, "Something's wrong here." But wrong was understatement. Cassandra Nova's presence operated on level beyond physical threat. She invaded thought before body, slipping cold fingers into memories, pressing into grief-stricken corners of mind. Wolverine felt sting first, sudden flash of students he failed, screams he could not silence, fire consuming expansion of his variant world. He staggered for a moment before shaking vision off. "Stay out of my head," he growled, voice low. Wade felt intrusion differently. Instead of pain, he felt mocking whisper of his own guilt, Vanessa dissolving, timeline collapsing, Deadpool laughing to mask terror. Cassandra Nova did not speak words. She shaped feelings into daggers. Wade recoiled instinctively. "Okay, big psychic bully vibe," he muttered, attempting humor to regain footing. But Cassandra heard thoughts, she fed on them, and she liked Wade's chaos. Finally, she emerged, not walking, not teleporting, but manifesting like ghost forming out of psychic smoke. Cassandra appeared in form resembling human woman, but her eyes gave truth away. They glowed with swirling static, as if she carried multiversal interference inside pupils. She smiled slightly, and desert wind bent around her as if reality bowed to mind stronger than physics. She addressed Wolverine first. "You failed your world," she whispered inside his mind, though her lips did not move. "Your grief tastes ancient." Logan roared, charging with claws out, slashing through her figure, but she dissolved instantly, reappearing behind him without effort. Wade attempted gunfire, unloading magazine, but bullets melted into dust before reaching her. Cassandra's voice slithered through Wade's consciousness next. "You, you I find interesting. You are a creature of broken narrative. Man who survived collapse by refusing to accept end of story. You don't belong anywhere, yet you insist on existing." Wade, uncomfortable with being analyzed by telepathic cosmic parasite, tried deflection. "Well, I moisturize," he muttered. Cassandra tilted head, amused. "Your humor is shield. How fascinating. It is crude, but effective." Wolverine lunged again, this time pure animal fury guiding motion. Cassandra parried swipe with mental projection that bent Wolverine's vision into kaleidoscope of memories. Wade realized Logan could not defeat her through brute force. Their foe fought on plane of thought, not muscle. Yet Deadpool had advantage Logan lacked. Chaos. Pure, unfiltered, unpredictable chaos. If Cassandra read minds like books, Wade's mind was burned library, pages missing, plot nonsensical, entire chapters replaced by jokes and trauma. Cassandra probed deeper, attempting psychic entry, but instead of coherent narrative, she encountered hurricane, fourth wall awareness, comedic disassociation, non-linear consciousness. She grimaced, recoiling slightly. "Disgusting," she hissed. Wade beamed proudly. "That's right, baby. No one wants inside my head, not even telepaths." Psychic battle escalated. Cassandra attempted to overwhelm both men with illusions crafted from strongest emotional wounds. She transformed landscape into ruins of Logan's fallen school, filling air with children's terrified whispers. For Wade, she recreated Vanessa's final moment in excruciating slow motion. Logan roared, trying to reach Wade through hallucination. Deadpool, overwhelmed, nearly fell to knees, but surge of self-awareness, rare but potent, struck him. He realized illusion lacked detail, lacked soul, because Cassandra had no access to full memories, timeline containing them no longer existed. That gap became Deadpool's weapon. Wade laughed, broken, unhinged laughter echoing across ruins, and Cassandra faltered momentarily, confused by reaction. Wade used moment to strike, charging not with guns or swords but with raw defiance. He plunged himself into illusion, grabbed Phantom Vanessa, and snarled, "You don't get to use her." Illusion shattered instantly. Cassandra screeched, psychic form rippling. Logan used opening to slash her. Claws lined not with metal alone, but faint cosmic residue absorbed inside void. Blade tore through Cassandra's projection, disrupting her concentration. She staggered. "You cannot kill me," she warned. "I am not singular being. I am imprint. I am memory of forgotten universe." But Wade stepped forward. "Yeah? Well, I'm memory of forgotten franchise, sweetheart." And he cut her projection in half. Psychic shockwave ripped through desert, scattering rubble. Cassandra's form dissolved into shimmering dust, but not before she hissed parting threat. "We will meet again when stories collide." Silence followed. Logan collapsed to ground, panting heavily, psychic assault exhausting even his enhanced physiology. Wade dropped beside him, mask tilted upward, chest heaving. "So, that was worst therapy session ever," he muttered. Logan groaned. Heat shimmered across desert. Cassandra's presence lingered faintly, the kind of psychic residue that suggested she wasn't gone, only temporarily destabilized. Wade shivered. He didn't want rematch. With Cassandra pushed back, gateway ahead stabilized. They approached structure she'd haunted, temple of fractured timelines built from scraps of infinite worlds, and within temple stood small contingent of TVA defectors, agents who recognized Cassandra's danger and sought Deadpool and Logan as possible, if unlikely, salvation. Lead defector explained situation. TVA has collapsed. Sacred timeline is gone. Variants like Nova formed their own empires. You two are statistical miracles, survivors of dead realities with narrative immunity. You might be only ones who can pass between universes untouched." Logan scowled. "We didn't ask for that." Defector replied softly. "No one asks." They explained further. Nova sought control of new multiverse branching. She wanted weapon, the one thing capable of piercing narrative boundary between universes permanently. That weapon existed only in one place, Earth 600 Sneski, in hands of beings who didn't know power they controlled. Deadpool sensed path ahead. He whispered, "MCU." Logan sighed, exhausted. "Let's get it over with." Defectors activated unstable time door that pulsed with mixture of TVA energy and stolen fragments of collapsed timelines. Door flickered violently. Wade placed hand on frame, looked back once at desert full of ghosts from universes forgotten, and whispered something only Logan could hear. "This time, let's not fail our world." Then Deadpool and Wolverine stepped through, and Cassandra Nova's shadow lingered behind them, watching, waiting, smiling. Deadpool and Wolverine finally crossed the threshold of the unstable time door, the flickering portal woven together from fragments of a collapsed TVA system and scraps of erased universes. They did not land gently. They were expelled into reality like debris launched from cosmic slingshot, tumbling through space that felt more solid, more grounded, more narratively strict than anything they had experienced in Void. or in their dying worlds. The sensation was immediate. This universe was not like theirs. It had rules, it had weight, it had continuity. Earth 616, home of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, pressed against their senses with density of story that had been meticulously built over decades of overlapping destinies, cosmic wars, time travel events, and heroes who lived and died within framework far more structured than chaotic narratives Wade and Logan came from. Reality here felt thicker, like fabric tightly woven rather than frayed. Wade noticed it instantly. Logan felt it like pressure on skin. For first time since collapse of their timelines, they were stepping into universe that didn't feel like it was in process of dying. Those scars of multiversal fractures still lingered invisibly across its cosmic architecture. The forest where they arrived, a quiet, wooded expanse on the outskirts of 616, seemed peaceful at first glance. But Deadpool sensed significance. Even trees felt like they belonged to larger story, as if ground beneath them had been touched indirectly by battles of gods, aliens, avengers, and cosmic beings. Wade inhaled deeply, mask fabric shifting. Smells like money, he whispered. Wolverine rolled eyes, claws half drawn, ready for ambush. And ambush came quickly. Branches snapped behind them. For a moment, Wade feared TVA had followed. Instead, armored figures stepped out of shadows. Soldiers, part of security force assigned to anomalous readings detected by Department of Damage Control or SWORD sensor arrays. Deadpool froze. Logan growled. Soldiers pointed weapons, scanning them with Stark tech-derived devices. Wade lifted hands slowly. Hi, we're tourists. That did not help. But before conflict escalated, Deadpool experienced first disorienting phenomenon of entering Earth 616. Story recognized him, not as threat, not as glitch, but as narrative wildcard with ability to slip through tonal boundaries. Universe resisted him at first, like immune system reacting to unfamiliar organism. But instead of rejecting him, 616 began adjusting, recalibrating to accommodate presence of character whose consciousness operated on level normally inaccessible to beings native to this world. Energy around Wade shimmered faintly, brief flicker of multiversal static that signaled merging of narrative codes. It passed quickly, but not unnoticed. Wolverine's physiology, grounded and straightforward, adapted faster. His variant healing factor synced effortlessly to physics of 616, though emotional scars remained untouched. Before soldiers could decide whether to capture or eliminate the pair, Logan acted. With near invisible motion, he rammed through formation, claws shredding weapons and tactical armor. Wade followed with gleeful mischief, cutting through confusion with combination of blades and comedic taunts. Within minutes, clearing fell silent except for groans of incapacitated guards, and as Logan wiped claws on fallen soldiers' vest, Wade whispered, "We're definitely in the MCU. These guys have higher production value." But woods were not their real destination. They needed to reach civilization, to locate artifact or individual capable of stabilizing narrative gap between multiverses before Cassandra Nova did. Wade knew enough from TVA defectors to understand Earth 616 held device of unimaginable cosmic importance, the anchor object capable of sealing or tearing reality. Wade did not know its form. Logan did not care. Their only goal, prevent Nova from reshaping multiverse into empire of psychic tyranny. As they navigated Forest Edge, Deadpool noticed first sign of being in universe governed by linear causality. His jokes felt heavier. Breaking fourth wall still worked, but its consequences rippled through space subtly, as if universe could hear him now, choosing whether to tolerate irreverence. He whispered aside to imaginary camera, "This place is strict. Better behave." Logan smacked his shoulder. "Stop talking to nobody." Wade muttered, I'm talking to everybody. They reached highway shortly after. Passing cars skidded at sight of man in red suit and man with claws. One driver yelled something Wade interpreted as compliment. Logan grunted. As they walked roadside, Wade felt strange familiarity. This was world where Avengers once fought alien invasions, where Sokovia rose into sky, where Thanos snapped the universe away. He expected to see remnants of those stories imprinted in environment, and he did in subtle ways. Billboard advertising Stark-funded charity, graffiti depicting image of Steve Rogers holding shield, distant skyline hinting silhouette of Avengers Tower or whatever corporation owned it now. Wade touched ground reverently. We're here, he whispered, tone surprisingly solemn. We're actually here. Logan sighed. Great, now what? Then sign appeared. Arrow pointing towards small town whose name sparked recognition across multiversal memory. Westchester. Wade stared at sign, heart jolting. Westchester, home of original Xavier's school in many timelines. But here, in 616, school did not exist. Mutants were only beginning to enter MCU narrative. Timeline had not yet integrated them. Wade realized something profound. Logan couldn't go home because home didn't exist here. Logan stared at Sign with hollow expression. Different world, he muttered. Wade nodded. Not ours. Not yet. As they continued, Deadpool began experiencing subtle narrative vibrations, gaps between frames, hints of multiversal pull, guiding them towards specific destination. Wade followed instinct. Logan trusted Wade reluctantly. Hours passed before they reached large city New York. Blade towers reflected sunset. Crowds bustled. And for first time ever, Deadpool saw MCU civilians in person. He pointed at everything excitedly. Look, that's the universe where the Avengers eat shawarma. That's where Doctor Strange does sparkle circles. That's where Hawkeye exists. Logan threatened to leave him behind. But as they reached heart of city, Deadpool noticed presence of energy signature, the same signature used by TVA Tech. It led them underground through forgotten subway tunnel into chamber pulsating with golden light. And there, standing like apparition of past sins, was Cassandra Nova, reborn, stronger, anchored now into 616 through psychic siphoning of variant minds she absorbed during journey. She smiled at Duo's arrival. You crossed worlds to stop me, she whispered telepathically. How touching. Wade took stance. Logan unsheathed claws. Cassandra hovered inches above floor, psychic aura shimmering. You do not belong here, she told them, yet you bring weakness of dead universes into one barely holding together. Wade countered, Sweetheart, I bring spice. Logan charged. Battle erupted across chamber. Cassandra conjured psionic projections shaped like nightmares Logan buried long ago, specters of students, illusions of X-Men dying, Logan's own younger self accusing him. Wolverine ripped through hallucinations with determination forged in grief. Cassandra then turned to Wade, attacking with visions of Vanessa dying repeatedly. Wade screamed but refused to kneel, slicing through illusions with katanas glowing faintly with leftover void energy. Psychic storm intensified. Cassandra cracked walls of reality around chamber. Golden sparks rained. Wade yelled at Logan, We need the anchor. Logan roared back, Where is it? Then Deadpool realized truth. The anchor wasn't object, it was Logan. Cassandra needed Logan's presence, his multiversal stability, his soul scarred by universal collapse, to weld new multiverse into shape she desired. That's why she followed them, why she waited, why she didn't kill Wolverine outright. She needed key only Logan embodied. Wade threw himself between Cassandra and Wolverine, absorbing psychic blasts that tore Mask apart, revealing scarred face contorted in agony. Logan tackled Cassandra, claws sinking into psychic flesh. Deadpool, gasping, used moment to overload stolen TVA device strapped to his belt. Temporal energy exploded in cascade, destabilizing Cassandra's form. She screamed, dissolving into storm of shattered psychic impressions. Chamber shook. Portal collapsed. Silence followed, heavy, deafening, final. Wade and Logan stood breathless. Logan leaned against pillar, chest heaving. Wade's mask hung in tatters. But they were alive. And more importantly, they had stopped Cassandra from rewriting MCU with her own narrative. As Deadpool looked upward, breathing in air of Earth 616, realization washed over him. He was part of this universe now. Not guest, not glitch, not visitor. Story had accepted him. Logan too, whether he liked it or not. Deadpool looked at Wolverine. "We made it, bub," he whispered mockingly. Logan cracked faint smile. "Don't call me bub." And as they stepped out of chamber into sunlight of 616, Deadpool felt something warm flicker in chest. Hope. New world, new rules, new story. And maybe, someday, new chance to find Vanessa again. Once Deadpool and Wolverine stepped fully into Earth 616, everything that had driven them, from the death of their universes to the collapse of the TVA to the shadows of Cassandra Nova, moved towards single, inevitable collision point, because their arrival in this world was not isolated accident or fortunate escape, but part of multiversal pressure building across all surviving branches. The MCU was stable compared to failing timelines they had fled, but after the destruction of the Loom and death of He Who Remains, stability had become temporary illusion, a kind of cosmic muscle memory, keeping reality coherent only because the beings native to it kept moving forward with enough collective momentum. The multiverse was now a sea without lighthouse, storms colliding invisibly on horizons no one in 616 could see. And among those storms was Cassandra Nova, now lingering as faint but persistent psychic residue seeking reconstitution through host minds spread thinly across fractured spaces. Deadpool and Wolverine, standing beneath Brooklyn Bridge as city noise hummed around them, sensed weight of battle still ahead. Wade, for once, spoke quietly. "We're not done." Logan didn't respond with sarcasm or aggression. His voice was calm, worn, and certain. "No, she'll come again." A breeze swept across water. Boats passed. Civilians laughed, shouted, lived. The ordinary life of MCU continued, oblivious to looming disaster. And Deadpool felt ache in chest. Not grief this time, but recognition. This world had energy of living universe. It pulsed with narratives still unfolding, with destinies not yet written. Wade, whose own timeline had died in silence, felt protective instinct he did not expect. He wanted to preserve this world, not because it belonged to him, but because it deserved to survive. And because in surviving, perhaps it could give him reason to survive too. Their next steps were not dictated by plan. They followed intuition, energy signatures, faint TVA residue that lingered like cosmic fingerprint. That trail led them to underground structure, built during aftermath of the Avengers Initiative, a research station intended to study relics and anomalies from pre-blip era. Its halls, abandoned since SWORD's restructuring, hummed faintly with old Stark Tech diagnostics still running. As they descended, Wade noticed holographic displays flickering with incomplete data, gamma signatures, cosmic radiation, PIM particles, evidence that this world had fought battles on scale Deadpool's universe never could. Logan scanned room quietly. "This world's seen enough war," he murmured. Wade nodded. "Let's try not to ruin it." But War was coming whether they willed it or not, because Cassandra Nova did not need physical body to begin destabilizing 616. Her psychic imprint drifted through minds of emotionally vulnerable individuals, mutants, empowered beings, even civilians carrying latent potential. Mutant presence in this world was minimal compared to timelines where X-Men thrived, yet faint sparks existed, mutants undiscovered, unnamed, untrained. Cassandra fed on them quietly like parasites seeking sympathy, but she required more, an anchor, a consciousness strong enough to withstand complete takeover, and she had found someone. The ground trembled lightly, Logan's senses sharpened, nostrils flaring. Wade gripped katanas. They moved deeper into facility until they reached chamber with shattered containment tubes. Inside dust lay telltale signs of psychic surge. Metal walls warped inward, glass molecules fused together. Wade exhaled slowly. She's here, Logan growled. Not for long. As they advanced, air thickened, not physically, but mentally. Cassandra's whispers seeped into chamber, no longer diffused echo, but coherent voice. You fled your dying worlds, she whispered. You crossed boundaries not meant to be crossed, and now you cling to a universe that has not asked for you. Her voice was not angry. It was condescending, disappointed, like teacher mocking students. Wolverine snarled, Show yourself. Cassandra obliged. She manifested through Host, a young woman floating above floor, eyes glowing with swirling static identical to psychic core Wade saw in Void. Cassandra had used her as vessel, hijacking latent mutant potential unknown to 616 authorities. Her voice echoed through Host, fraying edges of reality around her. Wade stepped forward cautiously. Let her go, he said, tone steady. Cassandra smiled through Host's lips. You ask mercy from one who was never shown any? My world died. I survived. I earned my place. Wolverine snapped. You don't get this one. He leapt, claws flashing, but Cassandra twisted space mentally, bending hallway so Logan slammed into curvature of wall that shouldn't exist. Wade attacked next, unloading gunfire. Bullets froze mid-air before dissolving into sparks. Cassandra flicked wrist. Wade flew backward, slamming into Stark Tech crate with force that cracked ribs, even through his healing factor. Cassandra's voice intensified, filling chamber with psychic pulse that rattled lights overhead. This universe is ripe, she murmured. It is young, expanding, vulnerable. It has not tasted loss I have endured. It has not felt collapse. It is soft. It will break beautifully. Wade coughed, pushed himself upright. Lady, you clearly need vacation. Then he charged again, using unpredictability as weapon. Cassandra tore illusions from Wade's mind, visions of Vanessa dying, versions of Wade failing. But illusions flickered inconsistently because Wade's memories belonged to timeline Cassandra had not consumed. His story was fractured, his trauma unreadable. Cassandra's psychic blade slipped. Wade capitalized. He dove beneath Host's projection, slicing through her spatial distortions with blades glowing faint traces of void energy. Logan recovered quickly, circling Cassandra with feral precision. Psychic storm grew violent. You cannot win, Cassandra hissed. Logan replied, Watch me. But even together, duo struggled. Cassandra's host cracked floor with telekinetic burst. Cables snapped, holograms exploded. Wade flipped between debris, shouting instructions. Go for her host's mental center. Disrupt her focus. Logan rammed claws into floor to stabilize against telekinetic shockwave, then sprang upward, slashing through invisible barrier with primal roar. Cassandra recoiled, the first sign she felt pain. Host's eyes flickered rapidly. Cassandra's psychic form destabilized. She attempted to flee, splitting consciousness into fragments like scattering flock of spectral birds. Wade wasn't having it. No, you don't, He triggered stolen TVA device strapped to belt. Its temporal energy burst, expanded across room, forming net that disrupted psychic duplication. Cassandra shrieked, aura collapsing inward. Logan seized opening. He lunged, pinning host gently to ground, claws inches from her throat. Cassandra hissed, "You would kill innocent?" Logan growled, "Not her." Wade stepped forward, pressed blade to psychic energy coiled around host's skull. "But you, time to uninstall." With synchronized effort, Wade overloaded device again. Logan channeled void residue through claws. Energy surged into host, not harming her but ripping Cassandra free. Psychic entity screamed, body disintegrating into storm of multiversal static that dissolved into sparks. Host collapsed unconscious but alive. Silence filled chamber. Logan slumped, breathing heavily. Wade stood hunched, mask torn, body aching but victorious. Cassandra Nova, parasite of dead timeline, had been torn out of 616 before she could root herself. But story was not over. As dust settled, Wade felt universe shift around him, not violently but subtly, as if acknowledging his presence for first time. Logan sensed it too. "Something changed," he muttered. Wade nodded slowly. "Yeah, universe is letting us stay." That realization hit harder than battle. For first time, Wade felt belonging. For Logan, belonging felt foreign but welcome. They stood in silence until Wade broke mood with gentle humor. "So, want shawarma? I hear it's tradition." Logan rolled eyes but smirked quietly. They helped host regain consciousness, guiding her out of collapsing structure. Above ground, New York sky stretched wide and unbroken. Wade looked at sunrise and whispered, "This world, it's alive." Logan nodded. "Let's try not to break it." And as they walked toward road that would lead them deeper into 6 month scenes unfolding story, Deadpool felt truth settle inside him like heartbeat. They had fought for universe that wasn't theirs, and universe accepted them anyway. When the dust of Cassandra Nova's defeat settled and the psychic storm receded into faint, harmless static drifting upward, like remnants of dream dissolving with morning light, something subtle and profound shifted inside fabric of Earth 616, as if universe itself had just taken deep breath after long, uneasy stillness. It was not explosive transformation, nor triumphant musical cue, nor sudden cosmic realignment, but quiet acceptance, gentle stabilization, a whisper of narrative gravity reaching out to incorporate two foreign beings into its design, transforming Deadpool and Wolverine from wandering anomalies into fully integrated pieces of a reality far more expansive than any they had known. That shift began small, so small that even Deadpool didn't immediately notice it. A breeze brushed against his suit with warmth he had never felt before, not because air was different, but because physics of this universe finally recognized him as legitimate resident rather than intrusive glitch. The healing factor he had carried across universes synced with 616's biological laws without stutter. His fourth wall awareness, once treated by Void and TVA as disruptive noise, now echoed gently rather than violently, as though Story's immune system had stopped trying to reject him. Logan felt it too in his own way, his senses sharpened, no longer distorted by tension between incompatible universes. His feral instincts aligned with ecosystems built on rules that had remained continuous since birth of MCU. Even his burdened heart felt slightly lighter, as if weight of being last man of dead world could finally be set down for a moment. The psychic host they rescued, a young mutant whose identity MCU had not yet fully ignited, regained consciousness slowly, as Pear supported her out of collapsing underground chamber. She blinked groggily at them, confused but alive, living embodiment of what mutant existence in MCU truly was at this stage. nascent, embryonic, delicate, emerging quietly like seeds sprouting between cracks of massive narrative foundation. As they stepped back into sunrise, Logan scanned the horizon with wariness but newfound steadiness, while Wade paused, taking in cityscape glowing gold under morning sun. He whispered, not joking but reverent, "We made it." Logan responded with simple grunt that conveyed agreement deeper than words. But becoming canon wasn't act of arrival. It was process that required acceptance from universe itself. Earth 616, unlike chaotic timelines Wade and Logan came from, operated under story architecture carefully layered across years, cosmic hierarchies involving celestials and eternals, quantum dimensions woven through PIM technology, mystic realms guarded by Sorcerer Supreme, multiversal fabrics regulated or ruptured by beings like Strange and Wanda, and temporal mechanics redefined by collapse of He Who Remains. For Deadpool to exist inside such ecosystem without causing collapse, he needed to be rewritten thousands of microscopic ways, not altering his personality, history, or trauma, but aligning his narrative energy with 616's pacing, tone, and metaphysical constants. And Universe began doing exactly that. Wade felt tiny vibrations throughout body, like faint hum of servers powering entire narrative, confirming that reality was stitching him into its continuity. Not forcibly, naturally, willingly. It was as though MCU looked at Deadpool and decided, this one belongs. As they escorted mutant host to safety, Deadpool and Wolverine noticed civilians reacting not with terror or confusion, but with awe, curiosity, and cautious admiration. After all, this was world accustomed to seeing aliens fall from sky. Robots lift cities, sorcerers open portals to other dimensions. Two bizarre men, one clad in red, one in denim and adamantium, barely registered as anomaly. And yet, Deadpool felt eyes lingering on him with sense that the universe was watching through its people, quietly testing how his presence influenced its flow. Every joke he muttered reverberated differently here. When he broke fourth wall to make a side comment, environment didn't glitch, it simply absorbed reference, like world acknowledging existence of audience beyond itself. He whispered, "Okay, MCU, I see you, you see me, let's dance." And unlike timelines that died under strain of his self-awareness, this universe did not crack. Instead, it adapted, allowing Wade's metatextual perception to exist as fringe phenomenon rather than destabilizing threat. That alone marked beginning of canonical integration. After ensuring host safety by delivering her to facility operated quietly by SWORD holdovers, individuals trained to handle enhanced anomalies. Post-blip, Deadpool and Logan left before authorities initiated questions. They wandered city streets side by side, mixture of exhaustion and adrenaline shaping steps. Logan remained watchful, Wade remained talkative, but both sensed same thing. They were no longer fugitives, no longer anomalies drifting between dying worlds. They were participants in stories still unfolding, and stories seemed to welcome them. As day progressed, Deadpool began noticing synchronicities impossible in his dying timeline. References to Avengers integrated naturally into conversation, advertisements acknowledging enhanced beings without irony, murals commemorating battles he once watched through cinema screen, but now walked past as part of world's lived history. In shop window, he saw action figure of Captain America, and for a moment, Wade felt strange chill. He was inside universe whose cultural mythos he once consumed as fiction. Now he was part of it. Logan saw his expression shift and muttered, "Stay focused." Wade nodded, though he couldn't fully suppress quiet awe. Universe continued adjusting around them. Pigeons reacted normally to Logan's scent. meaning animal instincts categorized him as native being, not intruder. Traffic noise flowed. Without distortion, sign that space-time accepted their mass and motion. Even Deadpool's healing factor shifted subtly. Wounds closed with efficiency matching MCU biology, rather than chaotic regeneration of his home timeline. He flexed fingers experimentally. Feels smoother, he whispered. Logan smirked slightly. Welcome to universe with budget for continuity. Deadpool gasped. Did you just make joke? Wolverine rolled eyes. Don't get used to it. But acceptance by universe wasn't just metaphysical, it was narrative. MCU began weaving Deadpool and Logan into its potential future. As they wandered near harbor, Wade experienced brief montage-like sensation, as if glimpsing futures he hadn't earned yet. Possibility of facing Avengers, possibility of fighting alongside mutants MCU hadn't introduced, possibility of becoming catalyst for integration of all timelines once separate. Fate wasn't predetermined, but threats existed, and Wade, whose story never had future beyond gag or tragedy, felt shiver of purpose. Becoming MCU canon also meant confronting reality that this universe had its own tragedies, its own losses, its own wounds. As they passed Memorial Site honoring victims of Blip, Wade felt heart sink. You guys lost half of everyone, he whispered to invisible camera. That's rough. Logan remained silent, understanding loss too intimately to comment. Deadpool added quietly, I lost everything. Logan glanced at him. Not anymore. Simple sentence carried weight of acceptance. Logan acknowledged this world as theirs now. Wade smiled softly beneath mask. Integration wasn't purely emotional. Does universe rewrite anomalies? Yes, in subtle ways. Wade's timeline memories remained intact but categorized as external canon, akin to variant history rather than contradiction. When he attempted referencing events from X-Men films not aligned with MCU continuity, Universe gently muffled dissonance, treating them as stories Wade experienced elsewhere rather than invalid disruptions. Fourth wall awareness of that process thrilled him. I'm canon, but I'm also canonically not canon. But also canon again, he whispered. Multiverse is wild. Logan groaned. Shut up before universe changes its mind. Then came moment that sealed integration. Confrontation, not with villain, but with choice. As they reached cliff overlooking ocean, golden sparks shimmered near Wade, a remnant of Cassandra Nova, last trace of dead timeline. It asked silently, do you cling to past or choose new world? Wade froze. Spark resembled Vanessa's glow for a microsecond. He reached hand slowly, trembling, but pulled back. No, he whispered. This world is where I live now. Spark flickered once, then dissipated. Universe accepted choice instantly. Sudden rush of narrative alignment surged through Wade's body, binding him to 616 timeline not through force but consent. Logan placed hand on Wade's shoulder. Wade nodded silently. No joke necessary. Final confirmation came hours later when SWORD drones scanned Duo from distance, then withdrew without engaging. System classified them as recognized entities, not anomalies. That meant Deadpool and Wolverine were cataloged, acknowledged by World's Defense Grid, officially part of 616 database. Canonization complete. As sunset, Wade stood on rooftop beside Logan, overlooking city that buzzed with energy of interconnected stories. Wade whispered, so, what now? Logan cracked neck. We live. But Wade shook his head slightly. No, we do more. We help, we protect, we try not to break things. Logan smirked. Good luck with that. Wade nodded thoughtfully. Universe gave us second chance. Let's try not to screw it up. Logan gazed at horizon. We probably will. Wade grinned. Obviously. And as night settled over New York, as cars honked far below, as neon signs flickered, as breeze whipped across rooftop, Deadpool realized something astonishing. After universe erased him, after timeline dissolved beneath his feet, after he lost Vanessa, world, identity, and fate, MCU gave him something he never expected: home. Not borrowed one, not temporary one, real one. A place to exist, a place to grow, a place where his chaos had meaning. He whispered final line to imaginary camera. Deadpool is officially canon, and baby, it feels good.